One, is conflict of interest, personality clash. Because I work situation all the time, the organization that I'm president of it, and I have people that have totally different personality. And when we're making, one, and how are you going to do that? So it's very tough, figuring out how you're going to work. So important thing that you need to know. And you're working, and you're going to, hopefully we're going to find this out. Next week when you present is how did you work the conflict of interest? How maybe one of you have different type of personality. One, is more task-oriented, one is a nice guy. So each one of you have a different leadership style, different personality style. And I'm anxious to see how this is coming out in your report, in your presentation. But be aware of this thing, now you have this lecture, now you can go back and before you present your paper, group paper, assignment next week, now you can go back and say, oh guys, yeah, let's look at, some of this issue in group decision making and see if we can overcome some of these things. Next step, so far we talked about decision. Next thing in decision is communication. Very important thing. And what you do, what a question I could be asking you on an exam is keys to communication. There are 4. Asking, telling, listening, and understanding. Communication, I think, is one of the areas that most of us are really struggling. And companies are always complaining about the graduates that are coming out of our colleges and they are not prepared for real life situations. They are not good communicators. And this is happening all the time, even in our personal lives. We don't know what to ask. We don't know when to tell. And we say we are listening, especially I have always, that relationship references. Are you listening to me? I said, yes, I'm listening. My mind is in so many other places, which comes, understanding. Now, asking, first part of communication, so ask open-ended, insightful question. But, it's so much more about asking. You have to know, and you have to adapt your situation. Is the personal situation, or if you're at work, and sometimes people confuse between personal situation and work. So you have to find that fine line between work and your personal life. So making sure you ask questions that the other understand. Is like I ask you for your assignment. And sometimes you don't tell me. I put an open-ended question to you, and sometimes you come in and because you did not understand, you did not, another class. What did you mean by that? So. Asking is extremely, so I would add to this, in asking you have to also clarify, what your intentions are, which comes to telling. So when you ask, telling is giving information to others, and you have to judge sometimes what to tell. Especially at work, when you work with others, you have to know what are you going to be asking, what are you going to, information that you're going to give them. Like here, I give you some information for your assignment, for your exams. I have to go to a certain degree of decimating information. Same thing, you got to figure out what are you going to be telling others. Sometimes it's not good to divulge all type of information. So you have to find that balance. Then the most, if I ask you an exam, but the most important aspect of communication is what? Honesty is listening. Most of us, we said we are listening, but and I'm guilty of that because I have so much going on my mind, and sometimes the person is talking to me, and I have so many tasks that is going on. So yes. I'm in my office, I'm working on your lecture. A student comes in, asking me question right middle of, I'm preparing for class. So I said, yes, I'm listening. I'm hearing you. We hear, but so listening really is a challenge for all of us, and we have to figure out what's an effective way. So the most important thing is listening. And so besides making eye contact, I have maintained eye contact doesn't really always work, because you can look at the person but still not listening to them. So what are other things that you really need to consider, because I think listening is an important factor in communication. What are other things that you need to consider when you are listening? Where is the area, especially at work, many times, because work is so busy, so many things are going on, and listening becomes hearing, and hearing you forget. So what would you do to improve? Because that's the most important aspect of communication is listening. What can you do to improve your listening abilities? Like you see sometimes you do in class, what can you do to improve your listening abilities?
You make part time, which is the time that you're going to listen and understand and focus on what they're saying, by filtering the important information from non-important, and focusing on the important information by documenting it, or remembering it to get documented. That's the important thing in listening, and how this helps improve listening.
That's good. What other way can you improve your listening? What other things can you do to making sure you're listening to the person, rather than hearing them? What other things can you do?
Ask a question again. Ask a question. When you say something, ask them, did you understand what I said?
Sometimes you have to make sure that you understand, especially always between sexes. Because I don't know if you read that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. This is a different perspective of culture. Cross-culture is also an issue, that you have to understand the differences of in culture, because I might say something and you might get a different interpretation of that. So listening, it involves many factors to improve your listening. It's not just one factor, and part of it is actually understanding the other person and having focus on, and try to do it in a time like somebody comes to my office and says, okay, I'll always come back when I have a little more time, so I can answer you correctly, rather than when I'm in the middle of something, then I can't. So you have to find a quiet time when you're not so busy, then your focus can be more on that person to listen to them. And brings it to the last thing is, you have to understand, this is to hear by the hand, but to feel by the heart. You have to always, and I said, and understanding by itself involves so many issues. You really understand the situation. Sometimes you say, oh, I understand that I'm in the situation, and always complain in relationships that you don't understand me, or woman says, oh, you don't understand me, my question. So it's a very tricky situation in communication. Again, in this class, in this lecture, we talked very briefly about communication in 608B is topic of a couple of lectures when we do it. So communication is a very broad topic. There are books written in communication. So here, some basic information about communication. Here is some common barriers to communication. Semantic, selective seeing, selective listening, emotional barriers, which talks a little bit more. Interpretation of semantic is, and it happens all the time. I maybe say something and you have multiple, sometimes you're trying to give a compliment to a person and the other person is thinking you're insulting them. Yeah. So again, that comes, and it happens to me all the time. I said, honey, I'm giving you a compliment. She says, no, I thought, you're insulting me. I said, no, this is a compliment I'm giving you. But people have different understanding of words, so you have to be very careful. Selective seeing, selective listening is extremely important. Most of us, sometimes we see what we like to see. Most human beings, what they have perception of others, and they see what they like, or they hear what they like. So if you like, see, hear certain things, you're just focused is mainly on that. You're going to hear them. And many of us, the most important, I think, barriers to communication is emotional barriers. Because most of us have a strong feeling about something, and that really affects us in our decision. But what else besides this thing? There are other issues that are barriers to communication. What other things you say there are barriers to communication? If I ask you to add to this list, what other thing you would add to this list? What other things that are barriers to communication? What other things that, because communication is a key, important factor for all of us, not only managers. What are some other barriers that is keeping us from communication? One thing I would say, not understanding the communication process. Most people, I think, most managers, most people, and sometimes, I tell my girlfriend, I say, take a class. I was reading experts say that. I said, read, and I'll send, I'll find some stuff and I'll send it on there, and they get upset over that. Oh, you think I'm stupid? You know, I don't understand communication. So it's so important, and there's so many barriers to communication. First was different personalities.